Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Catalyst webinar series presented by the Education Committee for the Southern California PGA. The Catalyst webinar series is a bi-weekly educational platform for creating success and change in your club and career. We're very excited to have Jason Gore. He is the Senior Vice President of the PGA Tour, Player Advisor to the Commissioner, Jay Monahan. He was with the USGA prior to that. But many of us know Jason from the Southern California section. He's a storied professional golfer from our section. He turned pro in 1997, went to the University of Arizona and Pepperdine, turned pro in 97. He actually is the all-time tour winner with 7 wins on the buy.com tour, nationwide tour, web.com, which is now of course, called the Corn Ferry Tour. He's the all-time tour winner with 7 tour wins, I think, on that tour. He also is a past PGA Tour winner. He won the in 2005. He won the '84 Lumber Classic. Also, he was very close to winning the U.S. Open in 2005 at Pinehurst. Many of us know that story. He was in the final group with Retief Goosen. And, also another elite group that Jason is a part of. In 2005, he shot 59 at the Cox Classic at Champions Run, I think in Omaha, and started an insurance company in 2017 or 18, and then went to work for the USGA. And now he's working as Senior Vice President for the PGA Tour. Jason, thank you very much for carving out some time to join the Southern California section today. We know how busy you are, and thanks for coming on and sharing a little bit about your life with us.
Thank you for having me. It's never can always find time for the SCPGA, so always find time for this group.
So we could kind of work backwards, or we could go from the start. I think a lot of us, know who you are, but we don't know the bits and pieces of your upbringing. I think you're from Van Nuys originally, but I know you spent a lot of time living in Valencia, I think. Why don't you tell us about how you got started in golf in Southern California and catch us up over the last 40 years?
It's getting closer to 50 now. Yeah, I was born in Van Nuys, born at Valley Crest Hospital, and grew up in Sun Valley, right next to Burbank Airport. And then we moved up to Valencia, or to Saugus, really, and I started first grade there. So I kind of basically been in the Santa Clarita Valley almost my entire life, and then kind of got started in golf. My dad was a wrestler in college, and he was always a really good athlete. I was always a baseball player, loved it. Still love watching baseball, and still love being a massive Dodgers fan. And it's really hard on the East Coast to watch Dodger games, considering they start at 10 o'clock. But yeah, I just kind of followed my dad out to play golf. He didn't really play golf. My brother bought him a set of clubs one year and kind of dragged me out. I guess it was his day to watch me, and fell in love with the game. And he ended up quitting after 3 weeks, and here I'm sitting here. So it was great. I obviously grew up with Tiger, and then a lot of great players, and I'm sure Eric Woman's on this call, so he was part of it. Yeah, I just got into playing SCPGA junior golf and truly fell in love with the game, and watching Tiger was, we all knew it was going to be great. It was just a matter of whether he'd burn out or not, and he obviously didn't. But I think he drove us to make us better, everybody around him, and there I sit.
You were class of 91. When did you graduate high school?
92.
92. And I don't know the lineage between Pepperdine and U of A. I don't know which one you went to first. Can you talk a little bit about your collegiate history?
I started at University of Arizona. I went there for 2 years. I won the Pac-10s twice, and then it just wasn't my speed. I decided I wanted to be closer to home, and so I wanted to go to SC or UCLA, but back then it was a Pac-10 school. It's Pac-12, and now it's Pac-2. It's a Tupac, but that's another story. Yeah, I ended up going to Pepperdine just because I knew a bunch of the guys on the team, and kind of at that point I felt like I was very arrogant, top collegiate player. And I'm like, oh, I'm going to go to a small school. And it turned out to be the greatest thing that ever happened to me. I mean, I still keep in touch. I know Hide's on this call, who was our teammate at Pepperdine, and it just, what I thought looking back on it, and that it was not a great decision at the time, but it turned out to be the best decision I ever made. Just going there and, still keep in touch with the guys. And it's just, it was a tight knit group. We won the national championship in '97, for a small school to go up against the likes of Oklahoma State and all these great teams. And it was just, we all loved each other. And it was just, we were, using the line from Good Will Hunting, we would have taken a baseball bat to anybody else's head for each other. And it was just, it was the greatest thing. Like I said, we're still tight knit to this day.
And then the transition from graduating Pepperdine and going out on tour, talk a little bit about that experience.
Yeah, so the day I had a little bit of a hiccup. I played in the Walker Cup, played in the U.S. Amateur, the end of '97, and then was on my way to my first professional tournament in Boise, Idaho, and woke up and found my dad dead on the floor. And that kind of put a little wrench in things. The day I was turning pro, that happened. So got off to a little bit of a slow start. It took me a couple of years to kind of get over it. I unfortunately, he would have been mad at me, and I kind of played the victim card. Why did this happen to me? What was me? Yada yada. But in 2000, I finally kind of realized that he would have wanted me. He would have been mad at me by the way I was, handling the situation, and got my card and played on tour and kind of bounced back and forth a little bit. Had some health issues and back issues and stuff like that, and so bounced back and forth. But it's winning 7 times on the Corn Ferry Tour is still pretty cool. I feel a little bit like Crash Davis, like the most minor league home runs, but it's still a record that I hope is never surpassed, because I hope these guys win at least 6 and never go back, right? But it's great. It's great to hold a record in something, even though it's not 82 wins or 83 wins, but yeah, it was a great. Sitting back, 49 years old, and looking back on my PGA Tour life, and sitting here in the PGA Tour office, there's some things I would have done differently, but I wouldn't have changed a thing. It's very grateful for having the career I had and the opportunities I had, and it's one of the few things that only golf can give you. They say it's a game for a lifetime, but I think that's pretty much an understatement.
Well, you certainly persevered over a 17 or 18-year period. I know you got a sponsorship exemption in 2017, and I think right around that time you started an insurance business, but then you went to work for the USGA. Can you talk a little bit about the dynamic of that time period in your life?
Yeah, I mean, we started an insurance business because that's what everybody did, right? We were just kind of blind luck. You talk to any member of Pine Valley, any great longtime amateur, and they're all in the insurance business. I'm like, well, heck, if they could do it, I could do it. So we kind of started it just out of the whim. If you go back and look at what my wife and I and the Kirkmans did at that point, it was just like, well, yeah, we'll just do this. And looking back at some of the things we had to do, you're like, wow, that was almost technically impossible. But I got a call from Jeff Hall, who was my Walker Cup team manager, and he runs the U.S. Open now for the USGA. And this was after Shinnecock, where the whole locations were, where Phil Mickelson went running after the putt. And he calls me right after the first year. I remember vividly, it was in Scottsdale playing in the Twin Fin with Casey Kirkman, who was our business partner, still my best friend. But and I got a call from Jeff Hall, and he goes, we've had some issues with the US Open, and I was trying not to be snarky and be like, oh yeah, duh. So I'm just like, yeah, I've heard. And he goes, we're looking for somebody who's got a little bit more, it can be a bridge between the players and the USGA, and let them know that we're not just these, blue coats in an ivory tower, and that we've got, we care about the game and how much they care about the game. And I said, I'm really not interested. I just played in the final group at the RSM Classic, and I was kind of there. And this was before the tournament started. And hung up the phone and I go, well, listen, I'll help you with whatever I can do. Like if I can find the right person for you. And I couldn't stop thinking about it. I went out and played, and God works in mysterious ways. My back was a wreck, and I'm driving back with Casey in his car, and it was the worst ride of my life. I couldn't find a place to be comfortable. So I went home, got my wife, went into our little office there, and I said, I want you to hear this phone call. She goes, who is it? I said, I want you to listen to it. So I called Jeff back and I said, tell me more, tell me what you're thinking. And he kind of told me about everything he told me in the original phone call. And, she got to listen to it. We hang up the phone. She goes, this is all you. And I said, I know it is. And 2 days later, I threw my name in the hat. And 3 weeks later, I was moving to New Jersey. And, and it was a hard thing for me because I love the game so much. I love playing and I love competing, but it was time. It was time to switch gears. And, by kind of looking back and starting the insurance agency, the gears have already shifted. And in this game, you can't sit half in and half out. You either got to be committed or find something else. And I had already found something else, was trying to do something. So it was great. I loved every moment of it. I was involved with setting up the US Open and looking at hole locations and fairway widths and all this stuff that as a player you just never realized. And it was awesome. Like I found out, like I thought I was pretty good at it because all I did was, my attitude was a fully USGA hating PGA Tour player. And like sometimes you can go out there and look at something and just be like, yeah, I don't like it. And they'll say, why? And I'm like, I don't know, I just don't like it. And then you have to move it. That's the instinct of like a tour player, and can't really explain it, but I'm like, all right, if you put it over here, I'd be okay with it. And so that's kind of what we went off of, and seemed to work out really well. And we had 4 or 5 great US Opens where players were happy. And like my whole thing was, I just wanted to make it to where it was the major championship they wanted to win. And I wanted to make sure that the kids at 5 years old were standing over putts to win the US Open and not the Masters. And I know that was probably a big hurdle to clear, but I grew up wanting to win the US Open. And so it was a personal thing to me. So it was just kind of like, I wanted to make sure that the US Open was where they wanted to win. And if you qualified for a USGA championship, you did something special. Like there was a guy at my club in New Jersey who qualified for the 2015 US Open. And that was how he got introduced. Like, hey, this is Pat Wilson. He played in the 2015 US Open. It's a career accomplishment. And anyway, it's a long-winded answer to just kind of tell you how I felt and what I thought.
So where you moved to New Jersey, where did you move there from? Were you in Ponte Vedra Beach at that point?
Oh, no, we were in Valencia. So we went from Southern California to New Jersey, which is quite a culture shock. We loved it though. It was, Southern California was really busy, and we moved to horse country in New Jersey, which we had 4 acres and not a soul around us. And it was great. It was like a nice, deep, fresh breath of air.
So you were based out of New Jersey, because I would imagine you were only on site for those 4 or 5 years at the actual US Open for maybe a month ahead of time, maybe 6 weeks ahead of time. Other than that,
well, going to US Open, we were there 2 years ahead of time. And, like we intermittently go back and forth and look at the golf course, look at the changes, look at, see how it was progressing. But yeah, it would be at the US Open for 2 straight weeks.
How did that position segue into your position now as senior VP with PGA Tour?
Jay called. That was really it. Jay Monahan called me, and it's a great story here too, because I'm playing the New Jersey State Open, and my wife was caddying for me / keeping score on Golf Genius. So she had my phone, and she had to go, use the restroom. And so I just threw my phone in my bag, and I'm like, the whole world can wait on the Jason Gore New Jersey State Open scores, right? I can be a couple holes behind. And so she comes, finds me in the fairway, and she grabbed my phone out of the bag and starts walking down. She goes, Jay Monahan just called you. And at this point, like everything was kind of going down. And the first thing I thought was, oh no, what did I say? Right? Did I say something that's going to get me in trouble?
Well, you're a USGA employee at this point.
Yes, I was a USGA employee, and like I said, I was playing in Jersey State Open. I was having a great time, but he called me, and I obviously missed the phone call since I was on the 10th fairway. But I called him back later that night. He didn't answer because busy guy. And then he called me back like 2 days later, and says, "I want you to join my team. I want you to be on my team." And at that point, it was like, no matter what I knew about the USGA or what I could learn about the USGA, it would never make up for the 17 years I had playing the PGA Tour, right? Like this is my brotherhood, and this is what I knew, and I could never. This is where in my life, and I love the USGA, but this was the pinnacle for me, like just being here and being part of this, because it's what I knew. It's what I grew up dreaming about playing in and being a part of. And so I had to play it cool. I had to wait for 3 weeks to tell him yes, but I knew I could have told him yes right then and there. But
So with the USGA, that was a newly created position. You were the first person to ever take that role. Was that the case with the PGA Tour as well?
I mean, it is now. Like I just got promoted to chief player officer, which we've never had. So I'm now running player partnerships and player relations. So everything that has to come through on the player front goes through me, including little spats between players. So I'm like I'm the hostage negotiator kind of thing. But no, it's been unbelievable to be a part of being inside the inner workings and being at the table and kind of realizing that I was wrong for all these years. Like I always kind of thought the tour was all about itself, but it's really about the players. Like it's actually been really refreshing to kind of sit inside and know that we wake up every morning thinking about how to make their lives better and our tournaments better for these guys. And it's like I can honestly admit as a player I was wrong.
So in your role now, you said you're the go-between between spats between players. I'm sure you can't get into individuals' discrepancies, but when PGA Tour players see your phone call or see an email from you or see you coming, they know that you're there to mitigate something that they've got going on with somebody else.
Well, I'm really here to kind of to help them. Like I don't drop discipline on them or something like that. Like my role is to help them in any way, and it's kind of my job to slam my fist on the table for them in the boardroom. And a lot of it's just instinct of well, what do you think? And I go to the pack and I go to the players and ask them, but it's my job to convey their message inside the boardroom and to be the player's voice, because they've got other things to do. They got to go hit 5 irons. They got to go make 5-footers and stuff like that. So it's my job to kind of look out for them. And, it's also my job to tell them sometimes, like, yeah, that's just not the way. We can't do this because of X, Y, or Z, or, it's, I have the opportunity to tell them no, but I always explain why I tell them no, so it's, I think I'm the only person that's walked in their shoes in this building, and they kind of know that I get it. I understand. I try to understand what it's like to be a tour player. I try to understand what it's like to, travel with the family, or to, like, hey, it's super brutal to get from Mexico to Bermuda. So try to go in there and find ways to make their lives easier, but also to be honest with them, tell them the truth, be as transparent as possible.
So switching gears here a little bit, can you talk about your experience in Italy for the Ryder Cup and your take on what the U.S. team can do better in terms of being competitive going forward?
So my experience in Italy was sitting on my couch in Ponte Vedra.
Oh,
I didn't go, but that's one of those events where I wasn't needed. Like they're in their team rooms. I personally, I think that those places are sacred, and I'm the last person they want to see there. Like, go compete in the Ryder Cup, go do your thing. Like, you know where to find me. It's they're so insulated and isolated anyway. So Jay asked me if I wanted to go, and I'm like, no, I'm going to stay here and watch it and play golf. So,
Now, I mean, I know you can't talk about the Live Tour too much probably, but you know, you've been with the PGA Tour since before that happened. How has the dynamics of your job changed since this whole thing started?
well, it's changed quite a bit. I mean, never in a million years I thought I'd be in this position, but um, you know, the players have such a bigger voice now. Like in my time, just because, and I hate saying that, like back in my day, that's one of my least favorite things to say, but just because was a good enough answer. And now it's not. Like these players are more involved, they're more curious, they've got ideas, and it's my job to listen. And you know, some of them are fantastic. Some of them, you know, we'll reconsider it at another time. But it's really refreshing to see that these guys want to be involved, because we want them involved. And you know, the way kind of things went down June 6th probably weren't the best. And you know, we learned from that mistake. But sometimes, like I didn't find out till June 5th. So it's like not like these guys. I got a call from we had a meeting at 10 p.m. on June 5th, and this was happening. Like I was supposed to play in the pro member with a buddy of mine from Hamilton Farm, and the next thing I know, I'm on a plane to Canada that morning. But so yeah, it was really tight to the chest, but that's the way these things work. Like, you know, you go do these massive business deals, and sometimes the guy in the mailroom is the last to find out. So you know, but right now I think it's right about regaining trust. It's about being open and honest with them. And sometimes, like, I don't really know what's going on in those meetings where they're talking. So these guys look at me and be like, hey, what's going on? I'll be like, I don't know. And they look at me like, you're lying. I go, guys, I don't know. I'm working on fitness trailers. I'm working on recovery methods. I'm working on basically what the signature events will look like inside and outside the ropes, and you know, the dining and all this stuff. So I think my job right now is I want them to realize that we're not forgetting about them, because a lot of this is business deals, and I want to make sure that the players are, you know, I want to make sure that what they're focused on is what I'm focused on. And so I've kind of respectfully declined being in that stuff. As curious as I am, I want to make sure that the players right now are not the forgotten entity in this whole thing because of all the moving pieces.
When you said you found out June 5th and the next day you were on a plane to Canada, we all know the timing of that in terms of the Canadian Open was not favorable for the Canadians. When you got there, were you persona non grata in Canada?
No, it was fine. Everybody actually, I was quite popular. They were, all the players were looking for me like, what the heck's going on? I'm like, listen, this is what I know. This is where I'm at. I got a lot of questions too. And it was almost like, I hope it was comforting to them to understand that this was a learning process. And, you know, this was just the beginning. This was not something that was set in stone. Like I kind of just said to him, I said, listen, if we told you that the litigation had gone away and we're sitting down at a table to talk with them, would you be okay with it? And they said, yes. They said, good, because the litigation's gone away and we're sitting down at a table to talk with them. You know, all the new code talk, like these were just talks, like there's none of that existed. I think it was put in there to like try to inform, like give them guidance on what could happen, what this may look like. But the two major things were the litigation was over, which was super costly to everybody. And we were sitting down at a table to talk, which is what a lot of these guys wanted. Like, why did you talk to them? And you know, like I've only been here for a year, so this all happened way before I got here. But I think once you kind of like put it in that framework of what that is, I think a lot of the guys were okay with it at that point, because that's really all we knew. That was the bottom line of the truth. So since then, you know, there's been a lot of questions asked, and I've asked them too, and I'm sure everybody on this phone call has wondered what's next, and I kind of wondered the same thing. So that's where we're at.
Well, I know it's a sensitive subject, and I know there's a lot you can't talk about, and I do appreciate, and we appreciate the candidness that you just displayed there in that last little piece of commentary. Changing gears and kind of lightening it up, Going back to your time in the Southern California Junior PGA Tour, what were some of your fondest memories growing up playing SCPGA Junior Golf?
There's a lot of them. I think one of the coolest ones was being able to represent Southern California in the Hogan Cup and America's Cup, and still got the old pictures of Tiger and I standing next to each other at Hogan Cup and Portland Country Club. But I just remember, like, I was fortunate enough to win Yorba Linda, and if you had a Yorba Linda championship bag, like if you won Yorba Linda and you got to carry around that Jones bag, you were it. Or if you got to carry around a So California Jones bag that that was blue and gold, like I still have it. Like those are the memories, and just the friendships we made along the way, and just learning about playing different golf courses, and just having the opportunity. And it was the greatest thing ever. And just, I always look back at Bob Livingston, who was our
Mm-hmm.
who ran it at the time, and him being our captain, and just learning from him, and being part of the teams, and being part of the culture of what SCPGA was. It was such an awesome time, and I miss it. Like, it's just one of those things, like, if you could ever go back, you ask him your deathbed, what would you ever want to do again? And I think it'd be playing junior golf, and going to Whittier Narrows, and going to Yorba Linda, and going to all these great places, and the putting contests, and playing for $1, and just it was awesome. It was great, and I miss those days. It was so simple back then.
Yeah, you referenced the Yorba Linda Classic. I forget if it was called that, but that was the best junior tour event. There was snacks and Snickers bars on every tee box, and Gatorade coolers. It was just that was it. Tee signs. You referenced playing in the Hogan Cup with Tiger. Do you keep in touch with Tiger a lot these days?
A lot, almost probably 3 times a week.
Oh wow.
Yeah, because he's now a board member.
Oh, that's correct. Correct.
So yeah, so we talk quite a bit. I haven't talked to him. Maybe 3 times a week is a lot, but there was times early on where I was talking to him 7 times a day, and I haven't probably talked to him in a couple of weeks. But try to keep him informed, and he's very much a part of it. And me personally, I'm super grateful that he's a part of it. He's in my mind, he's the GOAT, and just to have him care about legacy and to care about the PGA Tour, it's priceless.
So with commitments from charities and sponsors and purses going up to kind of keep up with the Joneses, so to speak, do you think this is going to be sustainable for us as a tour?
I do. I do think it will be sustainable, and that's kind of why doing what's going on, whether it's non-solicited outside folks, or the PIF or whatever. I do think that it's really our first time. Well, I got my buddy blowing me up over here. I do think it's the first time that we're able to kind of look outside of the game and see where we can go. But I do think it's sustainable. I mean, we got a great group of young players, and we got COVID certainly helped, and I'm sure everybody on this call can say the same. But golf is blowing up. People like watching it. People like participating in it. And I think with the explosion of Topgolf, with the explosion, with TGL coming up, it's all these great young kids. Like, it's gonna be really cool. And I think college golf has got a place in this, and so yeah, I do think it's sustainable. I think it's going to be a great thing, and I do think we'll find out really quick if it's not.
So we are sensitive to your time this morning, and again, we are very grateful that you committed to joining us. Got one final question here. I think are you 49 or 50?
Be 50 in May.
Okay, I knew you were close. Senior tour.
It depends on what day you ask me. Well, I haven't really played competitively in 4 years, and those guys are really good, and they're really focused, and they're, like right now, I'm getting ready to play in the TaylorMade Pebble Beach Invitational. So it's like having the 8 o'clock class on Monday, Wednesday, Friday in college where, you know, you don't feel like getting up for the 8 o'clock class on Monday, and Wednesday you may show up, and Friday, you know, you had a big night, Thursday night.
Definitely not showing up.
The teacher goes, "Oh yeah, you have a final next week." So I'm trying to cram. I got a lesson with Todd Anderson today. I like went to the gym 5 times this week. Like just, I'm completely cramming for the test, but it's tough to kind of get back into the competitive nature. And I don't want to just say, "Oh yeah, it's not riding a bike." I would love to play like 3 times a year to where I play early in the year and ramp up and say, "Oh, I'm playing great," and then play like crap and go all the way back down and then kind of go back up, get ready for the next one, and then reality will set in and then come back. So I miss the competitive nature. It's just the way I'm wired. I love it. I think about it constantly. I look at golf swings and I still video. I practice with my TrackMan last weekend. Like I still love it. I want to get worse slower than what's going on, but I'm just wired to be a competitor and I love it. So I'm not going to completely rule it out, but like I was thinking about going to Q school and then found out that my status, the only reason why I need to go to Champions Tour Q school would be to get full status. So I'm not going because I do love my job. I do love being here, but I'd like to play like 3 or 4 times a year just to like quench that thirst. But
like you said, it's hard to do. You can't go half in, half out with this. But it's like it seems like your position with the PGA Tour is really similar to your position with the USGA, but it's on steroids and it's 365 24/7. Whether your position with the USGA was more focused around the US Open, so there'd be times where that would be more of a crunch than others, where the PGA Tour certainly, these days is got to be a full-time gig.
It certainly is, but the only difference between that and the benefits of being here is it's Florida. In New Jersey, it was, there were 4 or 5 months where you weren't playing golf unless you got in a plane and came to Florida. So as busy as this is, we still have good weather. And so it's like Southern California. So, I don't have like the cram session in late October where it's like, I got to get all the golf in because I'm not going to play it for another 6 months. But, Christmas Day, if I wanted to go play golf, I could probably go play golf that year. So that's the one good thing. It's not so compacted into a short golf season, but you can't waver. You can't waffle and try to be a professional golfer. It's like, I'll go out and, play with Jim Furyk, and, Jim's not on top of his game right now, but that's only a matter of time for him. But he's still good. He's still really good. And it's like, I can't beat this guy, and I'm 5 years younger than him and, completely healthy. It's going and watching Stephen Alker and just watching him play golf and knowing that, 10 years ago, I felt like I could give this guy 2 aside, which I couldn't. It was like, but now watching him go out and dominate and play great, and Stricker, like, listen, guys, you guys are doing this every day, and
yeah,
really good.
So I know I said that was the final question, but one more final question. Many of us on the call, PGA members from the section, we serve a membership, or we serve a clientele at our properties. And we know that, certain members require more attention than others. And you kind of have that role with the PGA Tour players. And I know you can't get into personalities and such, but can you tell us who you talk to more than anybody else in terms of your position with the tour?
I probably talk to Keith Mitchell the most. Like Keith and I are good friends. I talk to Charlie Hoffman a lot as a Southern California guy and also a board member. Like I really, really value their opinions. I think Keith is a really smart guy, and Charlie is a really smart guy who's seen a lot. So between Tiger, between those 3, those are probably the 3 I talk to the most. Like I always call Keith my emotional support animal. So I kind of go to him and be like, dude, like you got to help me with this. Like I need some insight. But there's quite a few. Ryan Palmer's one of them. Like just guys I've known forever that, like I'd let them watch my kids. You know, like I always kind of feel like that's, you know, that there's a trust level in there, and that, you know, like I know that they wouldn't tell me what I want to hear.
Right.
And but yeah, those are probably the 3 or 4 guys that I talk to the most. Like Charlie and I talk a lot, just because, you know, the same age and kind of been through everything, and the families know each other, and he's a board member, and I just really, really respect him and value his opinion, and he's always very honest with me whether I like it or not. And I you know, you need that, because I think my most important thing is to never take off my player hat and not become a corporate shill, even though sometimes I have to, and sometimes,
Sure.
you know, so he always kind of keeps me in check with that, and I kind of really thank him for that.
Fantastic. Well, Jason, you know, on behalf of the Education Committee for the Southern California PGA, thank you so much for coming on the Catalyst webinar and agreeing to speak with us this morning. It was enlightening, and it was very enriching. And for all the PGA members that are on this morning's call, you will get 1 PDR credit for listening to the interview this morning. Thank you very much for supporting the Catalyst webinar. Mr. Gore, it's been a pleasure. Have a great day, and good luck.
As always, thank you for having me. Appreciate it. Thank you.